we're ready. Today we're talking about congruent triangles. Yesterday we talked about all the ways triangles can be congruent and classified. Today we're talking about congruency. All right, so if we look at congruent polygons are polygons that are the same. Congruent polygons. So I have this side is congruent to this side. This side is congruent to this side. This side is congruent to this side. I also have this angle is congruent to this angle. And this angle is congruent to this angle. And this one is congruent to this one. So we can call these triangles congruent three different ways. We can say triangle EFD is congruent to HIG. It's really important that you notice the order in which those letters are stated. EFD, we are looking at the triangle that has one congruent mark, two congruent marks, three congruent marks on the angles. So we have to make sure that we label it properly. E has to match up with the angle on the other triangle that matches the congruence. H has to match up with what is that? E. Okay. We can also say that triangle FDE is congruent to triangle IGH. Remember, the order matters. Those letters all match up. We can say that triangle DEF is congruent to GHI. That's three different ways that we can say those two triangles are congruent. Next, we're going to look at this theorem. If two angles of one triangle are congruent, then the third angle is congruent as well. That's just saying that if A is congruent to D and B is congruent to E, that forces angle C to be congruent to F. So now we have to label these congruent triangles in three different ways. Well, if I look at the way it's labeled here, I notice that L is congruent to Q. I know that P is congruent to M. And I also know that this angle right here, angle PNQ, is congruent to angle MNL, because those are vertical angles. So what I'm going to say is, okay, what's one way that I can label that? I can say triangle NLM is congruent to triangle NQP. Another way I can say it is triangle MLN is congruent to triangle PQN. The third way I can say it is triangle LMN is congruent to triangle QPN. All three of those statements are correct, because all of the letters are the same for, they're all in the correct order. Sorry about that. Okay, next, we're going to be naming congruent parts. But when you have angles, make sure that you use three letters on the, oh, we're not doing angles yet. I'm sorry, that's the next one. Okay, so we're labeling these angles congruent. So if angle A is congruent to angle Q, let's do it in red on the thing. Angle A is congruent to Q. We've got that. Angle B is congruent to which angle? Angle B is congruent to angle T over here, because it's got two tick marks. So angle T. Angle J has three tick marks. That means it's congruent to angle C. So now let's look at the sides. AB. I'm going to erase this. Side AB. Well, that's the side that contains 1 and then 2 congruent things. Okay, so I'm going to look for the same side over here. That's the same side. The same tick marks there. So they said that A is congruent to QT. Well, that makes sense. Okay, so let's move on. So TJ. So if I look at TJ, it's got 2 tick marks up here to 3. So 2 to 3. Well, that's this one right here, 2 to 3. So that's going to be BC. So BC is congruent to TJ, segment TJ. Finally, it's pretty easy to see. AC has 1 tick mark over here and then 3 over here. 1 tick mark over here and 3 over here. So that is going to be QJ. This is what I was talking about. We need to use 3 letters for each angle in this particular case. So what I'm going to show you is a way to figure this out, because you don't have any picture here. But you can draw your own picture. It doesn't matter what it looks like. I'm just going to say WYS. WYS is congruent. And remember, I want to put those letters in the right area. So I started with W up here. I put it in this corner down here. I'm going to start with M and put it in this corner down here. M. I'm going to go up to the next angle, K, and then B. All right. So first we're going to start with sides. Which sides are congruent? Well, if I put those in order, then it should be pretty easy to figure that out. We're going to say WY is congruent to MK. WY is congruent to MK. So YS is congruent to KV. I can put it there, or I could put it right here. YS is congruent to KV. And then finally, the last side, WS, is congruent to MV. All right, so then we go to the angles, and this is where you're going to have to use 3 letters. So I'm going to start with angle YWS, this one right here. Well, it's red and blue, so it's got to have the red and blue over here. So YWS, angle YWS is congruent. Now I have to use the same letters in the same position, so it's going to be KMV, angle KMV. All right, so then let's choose the next angle. The next angle will be WYS. WYS is going to be this one up here. Well, that's red and green. I'm going to look for the same one over on the other triangle. So that's going to be WYS is congruent to MKV. we have our third angle. Well, that's going to be this one. We have angle Y, SW, is congruent to angle KBL. I'm going to take this opportunity to tell you a little joke because you're going to write down the answer right after this problem on your worksheet. Since it's November, I thought we'd start with, a Thanksgiving joke. The question is, if April showers bring Mayflowers, what do Mayflowers bring? Wait for it. The answer is pilgrims, of course. Write it down. Next, each pair of polygons is congruent. Now we're going to find the measures of the numbered angles. Remember, if they're congruent polygons, then their angles are going to be congruent. So, take a look at the first pair of polygons here. Well, I see a polygon GHIJKL. And I see polygon ABCDEF. Well, I notice that they want to know what this angle is. Well, if I look over to the corresponding angle on the other polygon, I notice that A and G are in the same spot. So this angle right here is going to be 110. I also notice that E and K are in the same spot. So this angle is going to be 120. If we move over to the next set of polygons, I've got MNPQR and STUVW. All right. Well, I see that angle 3 is in the same spot as M. And I know that that's a right angle, so that's going to be 90. I also notice that W, where the 4 is, we want to know what that angle is. That's going to be the same as R. So we're going to call that one 135. Now this last one might be a little tricky because we actually changed up the way it looks. They're not exactly in the same position. We flipped it. So now we have to be a little bit more careful. We notice that Y is in the same place as E. So angle 8 is going to be a right angle. X is in the same place as D. So 6 is going to be a right angle. B is in the same place as G. So this angle right here is going to be 140. And to figure out angle number 7, well, we have to do some pretty spanky math here because that's a quadrilateral and all of those angles will add up to 360. So I've got 90 plus 90 plus 140 plus X equals 360. So my math will go, this is all 320. So finally, plus X equals 360, X equals 40. So that angle up there is 40 degrees. Now we have to write a congruency statement for each one of those shapes. So remember I told you, we looked at this already. This particular shape up here has G, H, I, J, K, L. Okay, so that's the first shape. G, H, I, J, K, L is congruent. Okay, we have to start in the same spot. Well, I started with G, so I'm going to start with A over here, and I'm going to say A, B, C, D, E, If we look at the second pair of shapes, we've got M, N, P, Q, R. I started in the same spot. M, N, P, Q, R. That's congruent to, I'm going to start again with this upper left-hand corner, S, T, U, V, W. S, T, U, V, whoops. V, W. Now for number 3, I'm going to do it down here. I'm going to start with the top angle. I'm going to start with A. I'm going to go next to B, next to X, and then Y. This is kind of tricky, so keep an eye on this one. So if I started at that top angle, I'm going to have to start here also. So I start with F, and then I went this direction for this polygon, so I have to go down to that 140 for this polygon. So that's going to be G. I went to X next, so I'm going to have to go to D next. And then I went to the last corner, which was Y. So I'm going to have to go to the last corner here, which is going to be E. So remember, the order matters. Next. Okay, so use the triangle angle sum theorem and the definition of congruent polygons to find the measure of angle X. What? Okay, so first I'm going to draw myself a picture of this. Triangle X, Y, Z is congruent to triangle K, L, M. Okay, I got that. So those are two congruent triangles. So it says the measure of angle Y is 67. I'm going to put it in Y. What other angle is 67? That means the angle L is going to be 67, because I know that about congruent polygons. The measure of angle M is 48. It says that right up here, 48. The measure of angle M is 48. So that means the measure of angle Z is 48 too, right? So now I have to figure out what the measure of angle X is. That's this guy right here. Well, it's going to be the same as K, isn't it? All right. Well, that's easy enough. Now we're just going to add these two angles together, three angles together, and get 180. So 67 plus 48 plus the measure of angle X. Oops. Oh. Equals 180. All right, so when we do the math, we get 115 plus the measure of angle X equals 180 minus 115. 65. So that's how you do one of those babies. And moving on. Find the measure of the given sides. Okay, well, look again. These are two congruent triangles. Let's draw them out. ABC. A, B, C. And DF. D, E, F. Okay, AC is 7A plus 5. Okay, well, where's AC on this one? It's right here. And that's 7A plus 5. Well, DF is right here, but they're the same, right? So that's 5A plus 9. They're in the same spot, so that means we set them equal. So I'm going to take, whoops, sorry guys, 7A plus 5, set it equal to 5A plus 9. So measures of given sides. So we had A equals 2. We're not done. We have to plug it in. And it doesn't matter which one you plug it into. They're going to have the same number. So let's use this one. We're going to plug A in for that expression. 5A plus 2 plus 9 equals 10 plus 9 is 90. I mean, that, no. 10 plus 9 is 19. Last one. You want to find 3 pairs of congruent sides using these two figures. Congruent sides. Well, I know that CA is congruent to JS. I know that AT is congruent to SD just by looking at these letters here. AT is congruent to SD. And if I erase this again, the first and last are congruent to the first and last. So the first and last are congruent to the first and last. So if you're going to write that statement, you're going to write CA is congruent to JS, AT is congruent to SD, FC is congruent to DJ. So now we want to look at the angles. So the first angle I'm going to look at is angle C is congruent to angle J. Right here. The next angle I'm going to look at is angle A is congruent to angles S. And finally, angle T is congruent to angle D. Okay, so the way you would write that then is angle C is congruent to angle J, angle A is congruent to angle S, and angle T is congruent to angle D. All right. Have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.